I want to share with you guys the story of Elijah, a prophet of God who challenged the prophets of Baal to see whose God will answer. This is in the book of 1 Kings chapter 18 verses 19 to 40. So Elijah is a prophet of God, and Baal is a god of the false prophets. So it's a demon that they worship. And Elijah is challenging all those prophets that are Baal's prophets. So I'm going to start in verse 19. Elijah commands for all of Baal's prophets to gather at the Mount Carmel. So there is approximately 450 of Baal's prophets, but there's many more evil men that are there as well. So it's Elijah against all of these men. So in verse 21, Elijah said to all the people to gather, and if the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. And then in verses 23 to 25, Elijah gives instructions on to do the burnt sacrifice. And he lets the prophets of Baal to go first. So they are gathered at the Mount Carmel, where it's Elijah, and then it's all these false prophets. So the instructions is that Elijah is going to do his own burnt offering and altar, and then the Baal prophets are going to do their own. And the Baal prophets are going to call out to their God first. And then when they're done, Elijah's going to go next. So right now I'm reading in 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 26. Prophets of Baal called on the name of Baal from the morning, eve, until noon. Say, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leaped upon the altar which was made. Verse 27. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, Cry out loud, for he is a god. Either he is talking, or he is pursuing, or he is in a journey, or pre-adventure. He sleeps and he must be awakened. So in verse 27, Elijah is mocking the false prophets, saying that, oh, your God must be sleeping. He might be in an adventure. You guys need to scream louder so he can hear you. So Elijah is actually mocking them. And verse 28, Baal's prophets cried out loud and they cut themselves. Verse 29, Baal, God did not answer. So after Baal did not answer, it became Elijah's turn. Verse 30, and Elisha said unto all the people, Come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him. And he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. Now in verses 31 through 35, Elijah prepares the altar. Now it's his turn. So now he's preparing the burnt sacrifice, the altar, and he's going to call unto the Lord. So let's think a minute here what's happening. So Elisha gave Baal's prophets a chance to go first and to call upon their God, but their God did not show up. Their God failed them. So now it's Elisha's turn to call upon God, who is our God, Jesus Christ. Verse 36, and it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elisha the prophet came near and said, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am the servant, and that I have done all these things at the word. Verse 37, Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that you are the Lord God, and that you have turned their heart back again. Verse 38, Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. Verse 39, And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, The Lord, he is the God. The Lord, he is the God. So in verse 39, this is the false prophets saying that God is the Lord. The Lord is the God. Verse 49, And Elisha said unto them, Take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elisha brought them down to the brook Kishon, and kill them there. So after this whole thing happened on Mount Carmel, Baal, their god of the false prophets, did not respond because obviously he's a false god. And then it was Elisha's turn. God did respond. He consumed the altar, the burnt offering. He consumed it. And that's when the false prophets were like, oh, your God is God. That's when they realized that they were wrong. And so after this happened, Elijah commanded for all of these false prophets. Now remember, it's 450 of them. There's a lot more, but prophets from Baal, there's 450. Well, Elijah commanded for all of these 450 prophets, false prophets, to be killed, and they got killed. They died. So that's the end of that. Again, that was 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 19 to 40. So me sharing this should encourage you and to show you that God is very powerful. He does answer our prayers. He does show himself, and he proved them wrong. So I know there's a lot of people in the world that are praying to false gods, and God will show them every time that they're wrong. But a lot of people don't want to accept it, or they're just in denial, like, no, this is my God, this is who I'm going to worship. So I hope that this story encouraged you. I pray that you would go back and read the whole chapter. It was 1 Kings chapter 18. But yeah, so it just goes to show that our God is very powerful.